Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulun Nabiyul Kareem. Amma ba'd. Those of you who are following, we completed Surah Tawbah and we started Surah Yunus. We just completed Surah Yunus and inshallah we will be starting Surah Hud. We spoke about Surah Tawbah yesterday, that this was mostly on the background of the Battle of Tabuk. And Surah Yunus once again gives us the gist of what the Quran is all about, and it begins with a statement that these ayat that are being revealed are from Allah with clear a message. The number one, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has created the heavens and the earth. Inna rabbakumullahu alladhi خلق السماوات والأرض في ستة أيام, in 6 stages, in 6 phases, in ways that Allah knows best. And sometimes in our heads a question will come, well, we know that the sky and the universe is there, but what about before this universe? What existed? And Allah says, وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. Before that, Allah's arsh, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, rested on water. Now, this is the description that the Quran gives, and I will leave it at that because this is beyond our understanding. In a different place in Surah Tur, Allah swears on saying, وَالْبَحْرُ الْمَسْجُورُ, the water that is simply moving, boiling. Allah knows best. These are descriptions that are beyond our understanding. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he went on Mi'raj, he describes the Lot tree that is there, Sidratul Muntaha, the Sidra, and it is beyond our description, where the roots are down in the 7th heaven and the leaves and the fruits are above, beyond another heaven. So you can imagine what the distance of this huge tree is, where he says that colors that were going on this tree were, I cannot describe it to you. So this is best, Allah knows best. And Allah says, other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no place that you can go to. There is no one you will find as protector other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever man gets afflicted by a calamity, we spoke about this before, and we can think of when we all went into problems, we start calling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day in and day out, and we do 20 nafil, we keep doing nafil, we ask. Whenever there is an exam, we stand and pray nafil and make dua, or somebody is sick morning and evening, we are making dua, that may Allah give him shafa, Allah give him shafa, or for our own selves, when we are in trouble, we keep asking. Before we go to court, you're caught with a ticket, and then you keep praying, Allah, say, help me, man. Somehow I want to get rid of this. We do that. This is human nature. But Allah says, when the mercy comes, when Allah listens to you, and that difficulty passes, then you forget Allah and you turn away as if you never called Him before. The salah is gone, the dua that you used to make is gone, the dhikr that I was making was gone, and now we'll worry about it next time when another crisis comes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, this is not the case. The true believer remembers Allah all the time. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِهِمْ. They remember Allah morning, afternoon, evening. They don't miss their salah. Allah says, many nations have gone before you. Lot. And the examples are there. Bani Israel's, there are so many stories that we already went through. And Allah says, those are nations that went. Now it is your time. We are the stars of today. Whatever, some of us may be born in 1950, 1960, 1970, 1980, 2000. This is our time. And this time will pass. Fast forward, maybe 2050, none of us who are sitting here may be alive. Our time will be gone. Now is our time. Do what you can do to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Find a place in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah says, when you need something, when you're in crisis, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But generally, there are also a group of people who go to somebody in between. You know, when you want something to get your work done in the town, you find an expediter so that he knows the ins and outs, so he will get you there. So in the human mind, this tends to come saying, you know, that there's a godly man. Let me go and he will help me pass, and my message will go, a'udhu to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was a disease that shaitan would put into people. The Greeks worshipped angels. The concept was, well, you know, angels don't do anything bad. So if we befriend the angels, then the angels will go to Allah and they will speak about us in a good way, and Allah will listen to them. So they worshipped angels. The Christians literally have started to worship Jesus. Why? Because anything that Jesus, once you believe in him, you're forgiven, because Jesus can directly go and tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they are forgiven. All this, Allah says, are whims and fancies. The Hindus have so many idols and they admit that none of them are gods, but they're all very close to God. So if we kind of worship them and keep those little idols happy, then Allah will be happy. So Allah says, وَيَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ مَا لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُم. They go and worship them and they get nothing from them, no benefit or no harm. وَيَقُولُونَ, and they say, هَؤُلَاءِ شُفَعَاؤُنَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. These people will help us intercede with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sadly, even among the Muslims, there are groups who, because the reverence of past saints, they have made their graves objects of worship. Or even if it's not an object of worship, they think that they are still alive in the grave, and if I go there to that grave and make the dua there, that person in the grave will listen to me and he will make dua, na'uzubillah. All that is shirk. Allah says, you want to ask? Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those who don't do that and start asking anyone else other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way or form, for them is Jahannam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from this. Ameen. Allah gives us the example of life. You know, this is our time. This century is our century, and Allah is going to look at us and our amal. إِنَّمَا مَثَلُ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. The example of this life. كَمَا إِنْ أَنزَلْنَاهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ فَاخْتَلَطَ بِهِ نَبَاتُ الْأَرْضِ. Like the way Allah puts rain down on the earth. مِمَّا يَأْكُلُ النَّاسُ وَالْأَنْعَامُ. And the water is a source of sustenance. We drink from it, the animals drink from it, the ground becomes green and trees grow from it. And then the trees will bear fruit and it will all look very nice. You know, when you go for harvest, the other day I had taken my children to get the apples from the orchard, and it looked beautiful. Those red apples are hanging full. It's a sight to really behold. So beautiful it looks. If you walk into an orange grove with all those oranges, beautiful. So in the same way, even our children, they grow. We ourselves, we grew, we were teenagers, and then we become youth, and we have all of our strength, and the flowers have come out. حتى إذا أخذت زخرفها وزينت أهلها وظن أنهم قادرون عليها. Until it has come to its peak. You know, your strength is at its peak, and the fruits are hanging ready to be plucked, and he thinks, now I have the power, see, I have everything. And then Allah says, one fine day, all that will be gone. Those apples will drop to the ground. The season will pass. We will eventually die, and we are gone. Yesterday we were born, tomorrow we will be dead. This is the reality of life, as Allah gives us this example. كَذَلِكَ نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمِ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. There's an example that is being given so that you can ponder over this. We have a finite time. Do what you can do. Be what you can be. Achieve whatever you can. Time is not on our side. It is Allah who gives us rizq. It is Allah who gave us life. It is Allah who guided us. It is Allah who sent the book. And there is no question about that book. And look at the challenge. Placed even then, multiple times. Allah says, Am yaqulun aftarah. You think that this book is a lie? Qul fa'tu bi suratin min mithlih. Bring a chapter like this. Come on, show me. You write a chapter and bring like the Quran. And Allah makes, in the Surah Al-Baqarah, the challenge is even big. That even if you wanted to, don't even think about it. Even if you wanted to, there is no way that you can even attempt it. So Allah said, and they did. They tried. There was no way. For us, most of us are not Arabic speakers. Those who have gone into the depth of Arabic, and especially those days when they read the Quran, it looked like poetry. But poetry has rules. And if you don't follow those rules, just like the way if you don't follow the grammar of English, that sentence will not make any sense. In the same way, poetry has rules. The Arabs had rules. And if you don't follow that, the poetry will not make sense or it will not rhyme. The strange thing with the Quran was it did not follow the rules of poetry, but it sounded like poetry. It was not supposed to make sense, but every ayah made sense. And they were shaken up. How can somebody write this kind of kalam? There's no way. It's impossible. They knew it. So Allah puts this challenge again and again. Try, bring a chapter. You can't bring a whole book, bring one chapter. And they could not. To this day, nobody could. And my dear brothers, following it is worth it. Allah says, قُلْ بِفَضْلِ اللَّهِ وَبِرَحْمَتِهِ. The bounties of Allah, the fadl of Allah, and the rahmah, the mercy of Allah, فَبِذَلِكَ فَلْيَفْرَحُوا. Keep that on one side, and all that we earn in this dunya, keep that on the other. There is no match. هُوَ خَيْرٌ مِمَّا يَجْمَعُونَ. Even by living in this world for whatever time we have, even if we get the whole world and all its riches, the mercy of Allah and the fadl of Allah is better than everything else. And Allah says, those who do it, those who hang on to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أَلَا إِنَّ أَوْلِيَا اللَّهِ لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. If you have done it, if you have taken and you fulfill that promise, let them know that for them there is no fear. Why? Because Allah will protect you. Allah will become your protector. And who are these people? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَكَانُوا يَتَّقُونَ. Those who believe in Allah and fear Him and Him only. For them, Allah says, لَهُمُ الْبُشْرَى. For them there is good news. فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. Both in this dunya, Allah will protect you, guide you, and also, of course, in the akhirah, His promise is true, and the words of Allah are written in stone. Nobody can change it. I'll finish today's little talk with the story of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam. We have heard it many times, but there are certain things that are special in Surah Yunus. Fast forward, now the people of Bani Israel are being tortured, and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam comes among them and he calls people towards Allah. But you need to understand that Fir'aun was a terrible man, a tyrant. If someone he knew that somebody supported Musa meant death. That was how bad it was. You know, it is easy for me to say, and I was talking to our brother Majid yesterday, and I said, look, the people of Gaza are suffering. All it takes is like 20 masajid in Cairo to just make an announcement that let's all take a bag of food and walk towards Gaza. Gaza is like from here to Hicksville. I'm just making an exaggeration, but that's the proximity of where Cairo is and where Gaza is. But they're not able to do, because if they do it, there's a gun. Just like Fir'aun, today there is a Fir'aun sitting there who is making sure that nobody stands for Gaza in Egypt. Well, there's no need to go into political details, but I'm just giving you the comparison. The same thing was there. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam stands up and says, you really believe in Allah? Stand up. Have the courage. And they stood. They stood up and said, عَلَى اللَّهِ تَوَكَّلْنَا. We will. And a handful get up. And then when the handful get up, others look at them and they get up. Until then, they all ask Allah for help. They ask for help as a group. This is important. Not alone, but as a group. فقالوا على الله توكلنا ربنا لا تجعلنا فتنة للقوم الظالمين ونجنا برحمتك من القوم الكافرين. Oh Allah, make not these people a fitna for us and deliver us from the clutches of Fir'aun, from this terror that we are going through. What happened? Immediately, do you think Allah said, yeah, no problem, I'm going to get you out? No. The order was, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى مُوسَى وَأَخِيهِ أَن تَبَوَّأَ لِقَوْمِكُمَا بِمِصْرَ بُيُوتًا وَاجْعَلُوا بُيُوتَكُمْ قِبْلَةً وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The order comes, well, you want to get out? All of you band together and establish Salah in Jama'ah. Establish Salah, get together. This is the secret. If we want to be successful, the first thing we need to do is we need to unite together. We can't be 100 different people and 100 different sects. We have to be together as believers. And together, we need to make dua. And they made dua together and they remembered Allah. They established Salah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise was true. And my dear brothers, when we make dua as a group, miracles can happen. Allah listens. Today, let us make dua for the people of Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liberate them from the clutches of Israel. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them strength and patience to bear with what they're going. Ameen. Fir'aun continued to terrorize them, and we know the story, which I'm not going to go into the details, where finally they make a day that all of them walk towards the Red Sea. They're running away from Fir'aun, and Fir'aun follows them. And we know the story how the sea is cleaved and a path is formed. The Bani Israel are delivered, and Fir'aun sees, he's looking at the whole spectacle. And he says, well, if you can cross, I can cross too. So he follows blindly, and there, when Allah's order comes, the water once again joins together. Now he's drowning. At that point, after all this, Fir'aun realizes that he's drowning. حَتَّى إِذَا أَدْرَكَهُ الْغَرْقِ. Then he shouts, قَالَ آمَنْتُ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا الَّذِي آمَنَتْ بِهِ بَنُو إِسْرَائِيلِ. He shouts, oh Allah, I believe. He's saying the kalima, لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. He is shouting the kalima and saying, I believe, just like the Bani Israel. You know, my dear brothers, I have said this before. We all make dua, oh Allah, may the kalima be the last words on our lips. Ameen, Ya Rabbi. Truly with belief. But the irony is, this is the only place that I know of in the Quran where a person's last words were La ilaha illallah, but he had no faith, no belief. And he's shouting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah responds. Allah says, Al-an, now? After all this that you've done, you want forgiveness? وَقَدْ عَصَيْتَ قَبْلُ وَكُنْتَ مِنَ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. After all that you have done and you have done all this mischief, all right, you want to be saved? I'm going to save your body. No, you're going to die. But your body I'm going to save. And it will be kept so that people who come after will continue to see it and take ibrah, a lesson from you. And even to this day, you will see mummies, you will see the body of Ramses there. If you have, those of you who have gone to the Cairo museums, and it is present to this day for people to take a lesson. My dear brothers, holding on, this is my message today, holding on to the Jama'ah is important. We can have differences, and by extension, for the first time, all masajid of Suffolk County, mashallah, it started from our masjid. We got together, we made an organization saying, you could be from Tablighi Jama'ah, you could be from Egypt, wherever you are, you could be from Turkey, it doesn't matter. We should all group together. And all of us, we have found the council, Suffolk County Muslim Masjid Council. And people are asking, really? Is that possible? Mind you, even the Shia Masjid people have joined. And this itself is something so strange. We had a meeting with representatives from the Suffolk County executives because they wanted to meet. When they learned that this is happening, they said, well, then we want to associate with you. There is a iftar that is now being organized. One was already done. The other one is at the DA's office, the district attorney's office. They have invited the council and they want to have a liaison. All this happens when we are together as a jama'ah. This is important. In fact, this is, forgive me for that, I'll take one more minute because this is Surah Yunus, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned something very unique about Surah Yunus, where normally speaking, a nation, when they disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they disobey the Prophet, then the curse of Allah comes, the adhab of Allah comes. There was one exception, and the exception was the nation of Yunus alayhi salatu wassalam. After 3 days, the Prophet gets tired of them. He knows that the azab is coming, so he leaves them before the order of Allah has come. And we know the story of Yunus. Inshallah, we'll talk about another day when he goes into the fish, the mouth of the belly of the fish. But here the people themselves, they realize their Prophet has gone. And they say, they see the adhab coming. They see the clouds have darkened. They know now the punishment has come. What do? They all get together. Jama'ah, the women, the children, everybody come out and they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a sincere way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is one exception. إِلَّا قَوْمَ يُونُسَ لَمَّا آمَنُوا كَشَفْنَا عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابَ الْخِزْيَ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, to a certain period. كشفنا عنهم عذاب الخزي في الحياة الدنيا ومتعناهم إلى حين. Allah took that punishment away and gave them time. Again, as jama'ah, to make dua, to make dhikr, to establish salah, this gives us strength and Allah increases that strength. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep us together. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remove the differences we have. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the people of Gaza and help them and give them victory. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gather us all among the people of Jannah, inshallah. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين.